We're all security forces, but we went off base to go drink in a town, American town. And we leave to get back in a taxi to go back to base. And the taxi cab driver got into it with one of the guys that was in the taxi cab. It became a national incident. Anytime that weapon's out of the ground, it's the highest priority asset you could possibly imagine. And once that happens, you get full riot gear. And then September 11th happened while I was there. It went to ThreatCon Delta. The whole base gets locked down. I would be sent out for 3 days to a facility where I would control the access to the capsule, intercontinental ballistic weapons.
Would help you later on in Miami in front of a particular judge.
To me, I did my post-briefing. He went back and said it was the best post-briefing he got in 20 years. Life is a blink of an eye. And so be careful what you do at the time here. Follow the most reliable person that's ever lived, Jesus Christ, and what he taught and what he said. If you follow what he taught and said, you won't have regret at the end of life. You won't get to the end and wish you would have done things differently.
Dear God, thank you so much for this opportunity to have a podcast and be able to speak to an audience and talk to a variety of different guests. I pray that you bless this podcast and that you would do your work in this podcast. And if one viewer could be inspired or come to you as a result, it's a win. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I had you on, were you the first? You were the podcast number one.
No.
You were podcast number one, and then Floyd was number two. So
wow.
This is volume 2 for you.
Well, I feel very honored.
We talk a lot. Anyone who didn't listen to the first podcast, do it. But Reed went over his entire childhood growing up. He had to go away for a while. Scandals, Miami boats, Bahamas, drug smuggling. It was a lot. It was a redemptive story. What we didn't get into, though, was your military career. We touched on it a little bit.
Yes, we did. It's interesting. I just did a talk about my past, and I started with the military career. But I went a little bit before that. What made me make that decision? A friend of mine, Lance, and I were in high school. Always considered ourselves a little bit smarter than the rest of the hoodlums. So we had the cell phone sales business and the beeper. At that time, there were cell phones and beepers. So we were selling those at school. In addition to like car stereos and all kinds of other things that we would get our hands on, we'd flip them.
Yeah.
But we knew because of, we graduated high school, everybody's up to no good. We had like this organized crime syndicate, essentially. And cops were coming down on us, and I knew that. So we ended up going in, testing on the ASVAB at the recruiting station here in Boca and Del Rey. And I scored high enough to do any job. Actually, I scored a 100% on my pre-ASVAB.
And that's the military exam for those who don't know?
Yeah, what that'll do is give you a score that then you can translate into a career, into a position. But you have to score high enough in order to do certain things. So on my pre-ASVAB, I scored a 100%, and I couldn't get the Army recruiter to stop calling me. I mean, he was knocking on my door, coming over, trying to get me on the phone. And the Marine recruiter, he was all buttoned up. He had his entire get up on and like very high speed. The Air Force guy wasn't even there the first day. His office was closed. The second day, he was in flip-flops and a t-shirt, and he was just hanging out. And I had a conversation with him, and he spoke to me in clear English. He didn't try to mince words. He didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. And I really appreciated that. And I liked his approach, yeah.
He was more down to earth. You could relate to the guy.
Correct.
And then you were like, this is a reflection of what the branch is like. Yeah. This is my taste.
And I didn't grow up around the military. I didn't know what I'd be wearing. I didn't know any of the lingo. I didn't know, ranks and whatnot. So I didn't have that background. So I was coming in there green. And this guy, shot me straight, and I appreciated that.
What was the motivation though to join the military?
It was that we knew we were going down the wrong path. We knew we had more sense than that. And we wanted to do school. Like Lance was, he started off a few semesters at Palm Beach, and I always wanted to do it. I just didn't have the ability to sit in a class and learn that way. So they were offering 100% tuition. I mean, they were paying for everything. So So we sat down. We ended up getting the test date. We went down to, I think it was Miami, to do the test. And I scored well. I mean, I scored high enough to do pretty much any job I wanted to do. Okay. So originally we were going to be tactical aircraft maintenance specialists, which would work on like F-16s, F-18s, and replacing parts and working on them. And it's a pretty intricate job. I mean, you got to know what you're doing.
So you went in with Lance to the Air Force?
We signed up together.
You signed up together?
Went to MEPS, where you go down and do your physical evaluation.
And it's all in South Florida you guys were at?
Yes, all in South Florida. The MEPS was, and the ASVAB, I think we took down in Miami.
Okay.
But they ended up giving us dates to go in. And it ended up being like October. But as time went on, people were getting arrested. I realized that I couldn't stick around any longer.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the recruiter and I said, hey, listen, I want to accelerate my enlistment and I want to get it, a date as soon as possible. He says, well, I have August, but you got to change career paths. He said, you got to, consider security forces. And I didn't know at the time, but security forces is like the infantry of the Air Force.
Right.
It's the most military part of the Air Force. Everything else, the rest of the Air Force is on first name basis with their commanders. They're smacking each other in the ass in the office. I mean, it's like a corporate environment.
Yeah.
People from the Army and the Marines, when they go on an Air Force base, they're blown away. They're like, this isn't the military.
Why? It's
just because they're looking at the different offices, like the support and the civil engineers and all these different, the maintenance guys, and it's like a corporation. It really comes across that way.
The way the Air Force is.
Yes, the way the Air Force is run. It's the white collar branch of the military, I used to call it. And but getting in early meant I would have to do the expedited enlistment, do security forces. So I said, okay. So that changed everything. I mean, here I am. I go into basic training. It's, all mental. And then I go into tech school and I'm learning, federal law enforcement training. With my past, with what I did, I'll never forget the first time I ever came out of the armory after picking up my weapon and getting into a police car. Yeah. Air Force has police cars to do day-to-day law enforcement. And I'm pulling out and I look in the rearview mirror and I see a couple behind me. And I instantly got that feeling of like, oh, cops are behind me. Mm-hmm. But here I am driving a military cop car.
Military.
With the 9mm on my hip.
Let me ask you, because you guys, in a previous podcast, you opened up about when you guys were younger, you're getting in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that kept you from being able to join the military.
No, believe it or not.
Trouble
when I got arrested, as a kid, it was a they called it, it's a, what is that?
Juvenile?
Yeah, but it's, juvenile crime. That they wiped off my record once I did my community service. So I didn't really have anything on my record. Lance actually had like a shoplifting charge when he was a kid that came up, but they were able to, because he was a juvenile, wipe it away. And we had just turned 18 a year before. Right. So we hadn't yet gotten in trouble. But I'll tell you this, so I'm in tech school and I get a call from my mother and she tells me that Davey had just been arrested. My brother had just been arrested.
Wait, you're in what school?
Tech school.
This is pre-military.
This is right after basic training. You go to your tech school, which teaches you your position. So whatever you're going to do, you learn how to do that. And I'm in law enforcement training and security training and all kinds of stuff. And I get a call from a mother that said he got arrested. And but the judge told him, he said, if your brother wasn't in basic training right now, he would be right next to you. But I had just gotten out of there quick enough to where I didn't, that wasn't my fate.
So that was one of your motivations to get in the military, was to kind of get away from
that. And I made that right decision because...
And then your brother gets
months later. Yeah.
Wow. So you made the right decision.
And the judge made the point to say, listen, your brother, we know that he was around doing, whatever. And, he'd be right next to you if it wasn't for being in basic training.
Did Dave serve?
No. Dave had multiple felonies on his record by that time. So
he wouldn't have been able to...
No. Ended up doing security forces and it was great. I really enjoyed it. My first Air Force base was Korea. I was in Korea for a year. That's an experience like none other. But because I come from a different background, when I got into the Air Force and I go to my first base, like minds kind of come together. So my buddy Joe Castelli, he was from Jersey. I had my roommate was Bob Clegg from Philly. So as you could see, like everybody kind of groups together, and so we had a really good time, man. We had great personalities. And then I got selected to be on a tactical automated surveillance system deployment for the base.
That sounds cool. What is it?
It's pretty cool because nobody gets selected for that stuff as fresh out of tech school. Uh-huh. And for some reason, I was one of the people that they picked. I got to wear civilian clothes and go around the base and set up these monitoring systems. So we had like different levels of security, microwave sensors, seismic sensors, all these different things you deploy around the base. Night vision. So if anything's coming near the base, you could see it from miles away. If anything's trying to penetrate the ground, we can hear it.
In Korea, where are you stationed? Like, where's the actual base? Is it in the heart of Korea?
No. So The heart of Korea, I would consider Seoul.
Okay.
And we have an Air Force base up there called Osan. Kunsan is 3 hours south in a farming town right on the coast. So, I mean, literally, when you get off base, there's nothing.
Okay, because I've never been over there. So when I think of Korea and China and all those, I think of this, they're all the same to me in my mind. And I think they're super dense city populations.
China, but many areas of China are like that. Japan, I mean, we're talking technologically advanced beyond the United States. When I first got to Korea, everybody had these Nokia cell phones or these, the verge of smartphones. And back home, nobody had that. We were all using that like StarTAC flip phone.
Razors.
Yeah, there was a lot more technological advancements in those countries that I saw. Mm-hmm. But no, this town was a farming town. Off the base, you had rice paddies and you had little huts. And I remember doing movements as exercise. We trained every single day in Korea. Mm-hmm. And we used to do these movements off base where we would do fire teams, and we'd simulate being, at wartime, and we're simulating going through these different towns. And these Korean mama-sans, these women would come running up to us, sit us down, try to give us tea and little bits of food, whatever they had, they would just give us.
They were very hospitable.
And just wanted to sit and talk, use the little bit of English that they knew. And I picked up some Korean by doing that, and they were just so happy. That's one thing that really hit me at that base. Mm-hmm. Was my first experience coming out of Boca Raton, of all places, the bubble. It's not a real
very
place.
Wealthy, upper income Boca Raton.
Yeah. And to see somebody with a grass thatch hut feeding us and giving us whatever they had, happy to just have a conversation. Yeah.
Things are definitely different on the east side of the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's always stayed with me, was like how different things were, and then you don't need all these things to be happy. And
so you joined the military because you see your life heading down a bad path.
Yes.
But you can also, did that change you immediately? Because you can get in trouble in the Air Force. You can get arrested in the Air Force.
1,000%. And
so was there
habits die hard. So there was at least 3 or 4 times where I came face to face with Article 15s, which is like very bad. That's career ending.
What is
if you get an Article 15, that's like a reprimand, or stays in your military records as you got in trouble, and it states what happened. And there was a time where 4 of us went off base. We're all security forces, but we went off base to go drink in a town, American town, where they have little clubs and bars. And we go and we leave to get back in a taxi to go back to base, and the taxi cab driver got into it with one of the guys that was in the taxi cab. They going back and forth stupidly. I think he touched him on the shoulder and he was like messing with him. This led to that, and from all accounts, I think the guy claimed he got slapped. I don't remember. The taxi cab driver claimed he got slapped. I don't remember seeing it, but he dumps us out on the side of the highway. Now we're in trouble. We had to walk back to base, and so we broke curfew because curfew.
So now you're going to be late.
So now we're late. We had to report immediately to the commander's office. And we got taken off a flight.
Let's talk about this for a second, because you get dropped off in the middle of nowhere in Korea.
Yeah, a couple miles from base, but we were.
It's not. You weren't scared. It's
no. We're military, bro. We didn't. We knew.
Were you carrying?
We were
time?
No, not carrying. We were more afraid of what the consequences would be because we didn't want to get in trouble.
You were more afraid of the.
Yeah, we didn't care that we were off base. That didn't bother us. But
so you get back late. What happens?
Yeah, the one kid that was with us, his name was Ellis, and he was from like Los Angeles. Like this guy was nuts, bro. He was a funny guy, but he didn't care. This guy, yeah. So no, none of us were afraid of that. We were just trying to get back to base, so we did try to minimize as much trouble that we would be getting into. And we got back, and we immediately had to report within a few hours. The word got back. It became a national incident. Is what they call it. Yeah. Whenever there's an altercation between an American and a foreign national, right?
It gets picked up by the news.
It becomes a national incident, and it has to be investigated, and there's all kinds of levels of things that happen, and where I'm like, well, how's this happening to me?
So you join the military to get away, and now you're part of national headlines.
Yes. And the funny thing was that once we went to the commander, the first shirt, and they all investigated what happened. It's if I guess this guy, this taxi cab driver, would do this to people. He would claim he got hit and try to like extort money out of people. So they had already known this about the guy, and so they started squeezing him, and he just said he dropped it because I guess he was facing a lot of trouble. So by the grace of God, those charges got dropped. And we were back to flight like nothing ever happened.
Is he still working as a taxi driver? We got to make sure.
I did.
He's not hustling.
I don't know. I think they were on to him, so that was probably the last time he did that. Yeah. So at first base, and I'm looking at that happening, and I was very careful after that. I was driving generals to and from the airport in Osan, and coming back and forth, and doing all kinds of stuff. Listen, that's the problem, is that they would call me Hollywood in the military, because they're like, Demos isn't made out. You're not in the military.
Yeah.
This isn't cut out for you.
Hair gel.
Yeah. No, I used to carry the regulation in my pocket, because I used to tell the kids I was like, they're not going to take my personality. Like, I'm keeping my hair the way I used to wear it, but I respected the rules. I mean, in the article, in the regulation, it says it cannot exceed 1.25 inches in bulk, neat and tapered on the sides. Bulk is the key word. So I would slick my hair back and put some product in it. They would always stop me and say, Troop, are you in regulation? I'd be like, actually, I am, sir. So that was one thing. I would try to maintain my personality while I was in. I wouldn't want to, give that up. But yeah, you found that your group of friends that you associate with usually share the same type of personality. But they would always say that. And they would say, you're not made for the military. You need to be, chilling somewhere. I said, don't bother me. I'm on vacation. I used to tell them that. They would hate that. I said, listen, guys, I'm on vacation. Don't bother me. This is a vacation.
That's very And
I would tell them back then, I would say, I'm getting out after my first enlistment. I'm not a lifer, because there's a lot of people that stay in for 20 years. So I'm not doing that. I said, I'm getting out and opening a restaurant. So everybody at every base I ever went to knew that I was getting out and opening a restaurant.
They looked at you differently then because of
that? Yeah. But they all wanted me, and I would always excel. I mean, I'd always get selected for back office positions and things like that. And in Italy, I ended up becoming elite guard, where, I'm on 6-hour shifts, Monday through Friday, weekends and holidays off. Nobody has that experience in the military.
Okay, so last podcast, you opened up about your faith and your belief in God.
Yes.
So I want to take a short break, but when we get back, I want to talk about what was your faith journey like at that time in the military compared to where it is now. So let's take a short break and we'll talk about it.
Got it.
So we dove in, we were talking about your military career.
Yes.
How you were in the military.
That's right.
You just got done talking about how you were in Korea. Where'd you go? You were stationed in Korea for how long?
I was in Korea for an entire year.
Okay.
So it's a long time to be away in a place like that from family. You're young. This is first Air Force Base. So it's very different. It's like, it's very different. It's like 12, 13 hour difference when you call back home. So you can imagine, even just calling home is a chore.
And there was no cell phones and emails. It wasn't really a thing.
It was, you're talking just before 2000. I celebrated Y2K there. So yeah, we had, we had calling cards that we would use, but listen, as a young person in the military, you're not making a lot of money. As you get to be the E3, E4, you start making more and you can afford some things, and I wasn't making anything. And not only was I not making money, I was sending money home to my brother who had just been arrested and had restitution. So, my uncle's like, you got to help him out. I'm probably making $500 every 2 weeks. That's what's going in my account. Half of that I'm sending home. So yeah, I wasn't making a lot. But then again, food's taken care of, the room, you didn't have to pay for.
Right.
I thought it was great. I was eating 3 times a day. I didn't have to steal credit cards to make it happen. So
where was your, so before the break, I asked you, what was your faith like back? Did you have a relationship with God at the time, or?
When I first got to tech school, I made it a point to try to go to church, and I had no connection. I mean, I was just going because
in Korea.
No, this was in tech school in San Antonio, Texas. Prior, so I was taking the time to go to chapel, and I was Roman Catholic growing up, so they had a Catholic church service, and I would go to that. But again, you're just going because it felt like the right thing to do. You're away from family. It's like when people go to jail, first thing they do is they become religious. It was like that, hypocritical. It was like, it's hypocritical. And I learned that later on. But in Korea, once I got to Korea and I thought I was the center of the universe, I'm going home on leave and I'm renting cars and I'm spending money I didn't really even have. No.
So at that point in the military, you had no relationship with God or Christ?
Nothing real.
Okay. So then you leave Korea, where do you go next?
I PCS from Korea, which is Permanent Change of Station, and I go to Aviano, Italy.
This already sounds...
Yes.
Describe your ride. Kind of give a movie description of your riding, because it sounds...
Let me start by saying I always push the envelope. The whole time I'm in the military. You got a lot of rules, a lot of people running around with their heads cut off. I go home on leave get ready for my next base. And, we're going to clubs. We're drinking champagne. I still have tons of friends that are doing things they shouldn't be doing. So I fly home and like, we're acting like we own the city. Going to South Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Boca. And,
so it's on leave.
On leave. And I get to the last day of this vacation, and I'm supposed to fly out the next day. I'm supposed to fly from Fort Lauderdale straight to Aviano, Italy. Direct flight. Well, I didn't make that flight because we overslept, and we didn't get to the airport on time. Antonio, my cousin, drove me to the airport, and we missed it. So by missing that flight, it turned into 9 separate flights. I had to fly from Fort Lauderdale to Miami, from Miami to Orlando to Baltimore, Baltimore to Dulles, I think Dulles to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to, I think I flew to one more, and then I flew from there to Venice.
Just to clarify.
And then I had to have my sergeant from the base in Aviano come pick me up in Venice.
And just to clarify, this is on taxpayer dollars?
This is on military dollars, and yes, ultimately.
To the taxpayers.
Because I didn't get it. So it wasn't a great reception when I got there. The chief, it wasn't a chief, I think it was a master sergeant that picked me up, came and got me, and he says, they're not too happy back at base. Me having a personality and being likable, and I talked to him, and I got to base, I owned up to it, and I didn't beat around the bush. They never brought it up again.
So that was your welcoming into Italy.
That was my welcome, having a sergeant to come to pick me up at Marco Polo Airport in Venice, and then drive me to the Aviano Air Force Base. A day later, or a day and a half later, because that's how long it took me to finally get there.
Which is not good for military, because they schedule. They stay.
No. Yeah, most people in the military don't let that happen.
Describe Italy. Where
I'm stationed in Aviano, Italy. It's outside of the town of Pordenone. So it's like 30 minutes from Biancovallo ski resort and 30 minutes from Lignone and Bibbione Beach. And so I had skiing one way and beach the other, and I was in a beautiful, beautiful area, bro.
And why do we have
the foot of the Italian Alps?
Why do we have a base in it?
Because it goes back to World War II. We set up a base there. In fact, there's still unexploded munitions in some of the farmers' fields because that base has been there since World War II. And when we overtook Italy because Germany and Italy were together, Mussolini and Hitler, they were working together, and our allied forces came in and set up bases that's been there ever since. So, and it's strategic. That base also supplies missions in the Middle East. We were supplying munitions to the Kosovo region when that conflict was going on, Slobodan Milosevic. So,
yeah, was this a farm area like Korea was?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are all Air Force bases kind of in the nature of what they are?
We want it to be rural so that if you're being attacked, you can see it coming from a mile away. And that's the way this is set up. And it's strategic. Absolutely. So yeah, we're up there in northern Italy. I'm a train ride away from, Bologna, from Florence, from Rome, from Milan. So I was bouncing around to all this.
How old were you at the time?
I probably turned 21 there.
Well, let's talk about personal life while you're there, because you're in the service, but then you guys get to leave the base quite often.
Yeah. I was one of the guys.
What would you do?
I used to see it all the time. You had a guy came in the Air Force, and he would stay in his dorm room, never leave. He's homesick, never go anywhere. Me, every second I had, I was off base. I would jump on a train and just take it. Me and I had a couple of buddies of mine, and we would jump on trains and just take them. Or once I got my car, I was driving to Slovenia, Austria, Switzerland. I mean, that's how close you are up there, is that you're a car ride away from these different countries. I would always be on vacation.
You would come back late though most of the time, no?
No, I wouldn't push the envelope. I ended up getting a elite guard position, which gave me 3-day weekends. No, I'm sorry. It would give me a lot of 3-day weekends because of holidays. I had worked Monday through Friday, and I had weekends and holidays off.
Wait, so this is your normal schedule?
Normal schedule. That's unlike any position in the military.
9 to 5, Monday to
No, it was 6-hour shifts. 6-hour shifts, Monday through Friday. But the thing is that I was protecting generals' homes.
Right.
I was protecting installations where I was all dressed up and
right.
booted up with the blue on and the combat boots tied up, laced up.
So let me paint the picture though. So you got a guy on the weekends running around town doing God knows what at that age, but then he's coming back.
Yeah.
Military man, seriously, guarding God knows bombs, guns.
Yeah.
So you're responsible, but at the same time, you know,
absolutely,
you know how to turn that off.
Yeah, I mean, I was really good at going out. Listen, I remember there was a show called Wild on E back in the day. And I forget the name of the girl that hosted it, but it was Wild on E. And they would go to these clubs in Europe. And they had a list of the top 10 clubs in Italy. And I think I was at 9 of them. Because like I was always at clubs.
Not in uniform.
No. I would, and that was the thing with my buddies. I'd say, listen, we're going to clubs out in Italy. We're going to dress like we're locals. We're not going in jeans and all this other nonsense.
Which is what?
Slacks, dress shoes. I had a wardrobe nobody had ever seen. I had Versace. I had Armani. I had because what I was doing before I came in, I had tons of credit card, spoils. And so, yeah, I had that with me. And, they thought I was nuts. A lot of people thought I was OSI when I first went in.
What is that?
That's like the FBI of the Air Force. Like, so I'm on flight and they're like, you don't look like, you're not like a normal airman. Like they thought like I was embedded to like
CIA.
Yeah, something like that. So, yeah, because I didn't act like them. I didn't dress like them when I was off. I mean, I'm dressed up, ready to go out. So jump on a train. We go down to Rome, go down to Florence. That was a great time. Florence is a really good time.
Do you have any stories that stand out while you're there?
From Italy? I mean, yeah, a lot of them, man. Sorrento, I would love going down to Sorrento. That was my favorite city. And,
so now at this point, you didn't run into anyone that was like, hey, maybe you should go to church or you should check it out. There's
never
hanging out at the base.
Nobody influenced me. I had a girlfriend at the time and she was way more religious than I ever was. Yeah. I mean, she grew up in the South and like she was American. And, that was my only experience with like that kind of culture. It's like, cause I didn't grow up around there. I had no experience at all.
Korea a year, Italy 1 year?
Italy, no, I was in Korea for a year and I was in Italy for 2.5.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got a big chance. Example, I spent New Year's Eve in Austria and, we'd go up there and, bring a bunch of friends and we would just have a really good time. We'd go and it was only an hour and, I'm a few hours from base, if I remember correctly. It wasn't that far. Salzburg, Austria and Northern Italy. It's pretty close. And Slovenia was another spot we'd go. And there was a club in Slovenia called ASVAB Gavioli. And like Tiesto would just show up out of nowhere. Bro, it was the craziest thing. Yeah. DJs, Paul Oakenfold would just show up and just play. And, it was
really were on vacation.
No, I literally. A lot of kids were, at that time I hadn't settled down and started taking a lot of college credits, which I'd like to do throughout. But yeah, I was constantly just going out and trying to, hang out and see the countryside. I was telling everybody, I was like, you got this little opportunity. You got to take advantage of it.
Now, did you ever see any combat?
No, not on base. No, because I was at Aviano Air Force Base, we had nuclear weapons. Any base where you have nuclear weapons, you don't really leave. Like your job is to protect those weapons. Sometimes they take them out of the vault and they'll put them onto the aircraft and they have to travel. And then you get to travel with them. Sure. It depends on what your duty is and what your responsibilities are. Yeah, we traveled sometimes. Yeah.
What is it like traveling with the nuclear?
Well, you're not with it, but you're protecting it. You're setting up a cordon. Once it, any time that weapon's out of the ground, it's the highest priority asset that you could possibly imagine. Right. So people, I don't care if you're a 4-star general, you're not allowed near it. Like if I'm guarding this area and somebody comes up and they don't have the right credentials, I can slam them on their face. I put them in handcuffs. It doesn't matter what rank you are. So they take it nature of this just because of how high priority or how top secret this thing is. I had to have a secret military clearance just to work around them. If you took something like NyQuil, you didn't disclose that, they would take you off a PRP. In order to be on flight and work with nuclear weapons, it's called Personal Reliability Program. Right. And taking NyQuil without permission would kick you off. Taking any type of medication.
Anything that could potentially compromise.
Anything, yeah. It's very, very strict.
Were there any immediate threats that you guys had to be alert for?
In Italy, yeah, sometimes. We had a lot of protests, a lot of people that would come around the base. And once that happens, you get full riot gear and you're out there and you're trying to...
So civilian threats.
Yeah, a lot of civilian threats, like communist threats back then, if I remember correctly. Okay. And then September 11th happened while I was there. So I was on vacation in Greece when September 11th happened. And I was on a little... TDY, or not TDY, it was a vacation. I took. And it went to ThreatCon Delta. The whole base gets locked down. Everybody, anywhere, if you're a military personnel at that base, you immediately have to come back. I couldn't get off. It happened on a Tuesday. I couldn't get off the island until Saturday. So here I am stuck on this beautiful island and I can't go anywhere until Saturday. And the whole world's going to
The whole world.
military installations.
And this is every Air Force base. They lock
Every
them all.
military installation gets locked down. ThreatCon Delta at the time was the highest reporting threat condition that was available.
That's why, because when I think of an Air Force base, I don't think of nuclear. I think of planes. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Is
No, nuclear weapons are a big part of the Air Force. Nuclear weapons are controlled and operated. So when I left Italy and I went to F.E. Warren Air Force Base, where we have nuclear missile silos underground, and in Nebraska, Colorado, all these different surrounding states, that was my job. I would be sent out for 3 days to a facility where I would control the access to the capsule. And that was 2 officers that would come do 12-hour shifts, and they would be down there, and they're the ones that get sent the signal to push the button, right? If we have to use our ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic weapons, then they would push the button. I was the guy controlling entry, and I was controlling the security response team that went to these sites if there was an alarm activation or somebody was over there trying to mess around. I would be. It was a pretty big responsibility.
high responsibility.
Yeah, very much so.
Interesting. Yeah, let's take a break, and then I want to get back talk about 2.5 years in Italy, and then what happens after that. So
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
gotcha.
All right. So I wanted to get into what you did after Italy, but just on breaker, just tell me about they shot Black Hawk down.
Yeah. We had a TDY to Morocco, and at the same time they were filming Black Hawk Down.
TDY is
It's temporary deployment, so it's like a small. Could be anywhere from like a month to 6 months. It just depends on what it is. Could be. It just depends on what you're going for.
in Morocco.
In Morocco, yeah. So we get there, and they put us up. So Air Force, we travel, even though we're security forces, we travel with a government credit card. And so if we have incidentals, we got to put on the card, we're not always Army and Marines are, when they go, they're in tent cities. They have these makeshift towns that they set up with tents, and, and so we do that sometimes, but this time we were at the hotel. They put us up the hill. And it just happened to be that the cast and crew were staying at the Hilton. And so we had a little time off, and we're at the pool. And we get to talking to some Americans. They're like, "Are you guys part of the crew?" And we're like, no, we're in the Air Force.
Oh, really?
You guys are in the Air Force. They're like, the Army's sleeping out in tents right now, and they're in the Marine. I said, well, I did my research when I made my choice, So that's that was a funny realization of how different the branches are.
You're staying in a hotel with Hollywood
celebrities and crew and all kinds of people, and they're out there at tents. So that was a cool, felt pretty fun. I always liked that whole movie thing, and I did drama when I was in high school. I don't graduate, so I talked to a little bit later on. I would try to explore that a little bit, but
well, that's a great way to end off Italy.
Yeah.
And then so you go. Where do you go after 2.5 years in Italy? You go.
Then I PCS, permanent change of station, to F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming.
In Wyoming. So now you're back in
Talk
the
about a
States.
culture shock.
Yeah.
From Korea to Italy to Wyoming. I get there, and my parents were living in Vegas at the time, so I'd go to Vegas. Before I got to F.E. Warren, I took a little vacation to see my parents. I'm at clubs and all this stuff. And I remember getting there to F.E. Warren Air Force Base, and a friend of mine that I knew from Italy took me out to the bar, and they're playing that song, Slide to the Left, Slide to the Right.
Yeah.
Crisscross. First time I ever heard that song was in this bar in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I'm shaking my head like, where am I? I was at a club. I was at Privé, Planet Hollywood, like 3 days before that, and now I'm standing in this.
You're in Cheyenne?
I'm in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
What's his face? George, Son of Country. It's a Cheyenne song.
Is there?
I got to list it one.
Man, I'll tell you,
It still makes
tiny little town, but it's centrally located to all the missile sites that we have, the nuclear missile sites. So that's what I ended up.
Another remote area, bunch of Air Force bases.
Yeah.
Culture shock. I mean, going out in Wyoming, Americans act a lot different than Europeans.
I had just bought a black Mercedes E-Class. I had a 19-inch Lowenhars, and you would think I was pulling up in a UFO. I'd pull up to some of these places, and everything's just like, what is that? Like, what kind of car? I remember a person at the gas station, what kind of car is that? They're like Toyotas on the road back home, but up there it was.
They got pickup trucks and
Yeah,
overalls and suspenders.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You did modeling?
I did, yeah.
You were in the Air Force?
While I was in the Air Force, yeah, there was a modeling agency in Denver that I used to go down to Denver all the time, and so I took pictures and everything, and they ended up, signing me up to do I think it was like a year contract. And what I did a lot of was like these fashion events where a lot of department stores like, Macy's and all that would show up. And then like some of the designers would have their collection and you would walk around wearing their stuff and they would decide what to carry in the department stores. I did a lot of that and made good money. Made really good money.
So you're in the Air Force. I want to ask you, now that you're a man of faith, you have a personal relationship with Christ.
Yes.
Had you had a relationship with Christ while you were in the Air Force when you were younger, would your time there look differently as it did? Would you have done
it differently? No, 100%. I would have a little different mindset. I was stuck in that, even though I tried to escape, something in my soul was telling me, get away from this. This is bad. I had morals. I had a compass, but I wasn't really listening to it. I would just do whatever I thought made sense. I still had bad influences and whatnot. And, worshiping the dollar, chasing, earthly things and, all this stuff. Yeah, I would have probably approached it much differently. I may still be in the military, but you know what? God has a plan. God's plan is what it is. And you have to, you have to take advantage of it when you can, when you pay attention, it's,
do you have any opportunities now to talk to any vets?
Yes, I do a lot of VA home loans. Yeah. I do I was actively talking to them online about, providing them with their benefit, with the VA home loan benefit. So that helps. I'm now going back to the VA to get it. I have VA coverage. So, going back to see if I can get covered for like, mental and, psychological, evaluations and whatnot. So a lot of stuff like that. And I encountered vets along the way during that process as well.
Let's bounce back to Wyoming. How long were you there for?
I think about 2.5 years.
Another 2.5 years. So at this point, you're in about 6 years.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after Wyoming?
I separated from the Air Force, went to Tennessee and opened a restaurant, just like I said I was going to do for those 5-6 years.
Now, a lot of people didn't know this. I learned about this when I looked at your resume. While you were in the Air Force, you were also enrolled in college.
Yes.
You were taking courses also.
Yes. Very hard to do. It's the wrong mindset.
It's interesting because you're this modeling guy.
Yeah.
You're in the Air Force. You're going clubbing and partying a few days a week, but you're excelling in the military and you're taking college courses. So you're kind of like a perfect but not perfect example of how you can have everything and do everything, but still excel.
Man, if I had a little guidance, I would have killed it. But yes, I still pushed myself to do what I knew was right, especially when I got to Wyoming. Italy was my club phase, and in Wyoming, there wasn't much else. I would leave and go to Vegas sometimes or go to Denver if we wanted to do that. But while I'm in Wyoming, I'm working at a missile facility that I would be out for sometimes 4 or 5 days. And so while I'm out there, I'm taking my courses, I'm doing online college classes. So I use a lot of time to do that.
And the government pays for these?
Sure. Yeah. So, and when you go into the Air Force, just your tech school alone, you've got enough for an associate's most of the time, depending on what you're doing. So I took that and I didn't want to pursue law enforcement. So I ended up pursuing business. So I turned that degree into that direction and went for business. So then University of Maryland, I'm sorry to interrupt, but University of Maryland is on every Air Force base, in addition to several other colleges or universities.
Now, what was it like? What do you call it, leaving the military, getting out? What's it for
separating?
So what's it like separating from the military and becoming, being prior service now, you're a civilian and getting back into the culture? Was it shocking for you or a little less shocking because the routines were kind of similar, or how was it?
It wasn't as shocking. I was mentally checked out in FE Ward. Again, even though I excelled, they made an offer to keep me in.
Yeah.
I think they were paying like $25,000 to stay in, and you'd have to sign up for another 8 years or something. 6, I don't remember which was.
Now, in retrospect, do you wish you would have been a career guy?
I don't know. I didn't think I had the right personality or the right mindset. I think I would eventually done something stupid.
And you got honorably discharged?
Honorable discharge, correct.
This is a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah. And not only that, but I got distinguished graduate when I was at FE Warren because I had to go for my senior Airman Leadership School, and I ended up getting distinguished graduate while I was in, which is a high honor. Not many people end up achieving that. But even in that, during the class, I would do things like I would pull all I had like the desks where we're all lined up around a U-shaped desk, but behind my desk, I grabbed all the American flags and I put it behind me like I was the president.
You would do things like that,
yes,
but then you would get.
But they loved it.
Little did you know all these high rankings and honorable discharge would help you later on in Miami in front of a particular judge that you talk to.
100%. 100%.
So God does have a sense of humor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like in that class, I learned that I liked that leadership position. I liked, getting up in front of people and talking. I hated it before that. But when I went to that course, everybody thought, they liked it. And so, it kind of opened my eyes to that.
How old were you when you left the military?
26, 27, like about to turn 27.
All right. And now was that 10 years ago?
That was, no, it's like more than that. It's like when I separated completely, it was like 2008. So, right? Something like that. Yeah. So it wasn't yesterday.
How old were you then when you set the Christ in your life?
Man, I mean, I always felt like I was a father. I mean, I always believed in Jesus. If I ever had a conversation,
let me ask you
in those years.
How old were you when you put your faith and trust in him and stopped putting your faith and trust in other things?
Just after my grandmother died. So, I mean,
this is years after
2020. What?
Recent. Okay.
Yeah.
Relatively recent.
Yeah. Right. When I really woke up and I saw things clearly. Yeah.
How do you think, so you've been after the military, you started several businesses of your own. You've been involved in the hotel industry. How do you think your time in the military and the way the military is structured and the leadership roles, are there any parallels that you were to carry over and take those skills into?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Air Force is ran like a corporate, has a corporate structure to it.
Right.
It's ran like a business. So yeah, I learned a lot about how to, manage people, manage my time. And, I had a lot of bad habits. I'm not going to lie. I mean, in F.E. Warren Air Force Base, I was out at a missile site, and a 4-star general came out to the site to visit, to inspect. And I had been out there for an extra 2 days. I was miserable. I didn't want to talk to anybody, especially not this guy. When he came out and did his little, his walk arounds, he got to me. I did my post briefing. He went back and said it was the best post briefing he got in 20 years. I was basically this is what we do. This is how we do it. Got any questions? But I was like, I talked to him like he was another person, like just a regular person.
Right.
And so it ended up playing in my favor again. They gave me a back office position where I had my own desk in this building. And it was funny because at 7:00, I was supposed to be there in the morning, but they would all look out the window and watch me circling the parking lot, looking for a front spot. And it was 7:20, 7:25. And it's like, oh, that's Demo's looking for a spot. I mean, it's not supposed to be like that in the military, but that was my personality. I wouldn't, it was bad habits. But I learned a lot because, I learned the structure and, getting deadlines done and making sure, you're held accountable. But then I would take pictures of myself and put them on the faces of the inspirational posters around the office. Like we would have like success and it would be a picture of an eagle flying and I would have my face on the eagle. I just enjoy doing stuff like that. Like
it's yeah. Is there anything in your career, in your life that if you could go back and do differently, what was?
Man, I don't really believe like that. I feel like there's no such thing as time. Everything happens in the present. I feel like I am who I am because God's path. I mean, I really don't look at things like that. I feel like
there's something where you're like, I probably should have done it. Maybe if I would.
Sure. I mean, I would say, the mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes,
like
right?
For the viewers, because you lived a wild life, a different life than most people. For the viewers,
that's a great point. Yeah.
What would you tell them? Like maybe.
I wish I would have I don't wish. It would have been nice to have my faith strengthened earlier, but it wouldn't have worked. I know that. I just don't. I don't see things that way. I can't imagine, being in the right mindset to accept Christ before I did because I wasn't ready. So, and then I feel like if I would have done things differently, maybe I wouldn't have the kids that I have.
Right.
And I feel so blessed to, have my wife and kids. Yeah.
So I tell my wife all the time, there's no scenario that I would change.
That's right.
Because it wouldn't, for that split second, wouldn't have let me have my specific son.
I feel like,
there's no way I could change it.
I feel like time is like the stem of a plant. And like, what are you going to do? You're going to change like the piece of it? You can't do that. Like it's what makes up where it's at now.
What's a mistake? Let me rephrase the question. Mistake that you made that you would want to teach someone now? Not to idolize the right people. Surround yourself with the right people. Don't waste time idolizing things of this world. It's going to lead you in circles. What type of people were you idolizing?
the wrong crowd. It's the people that I grew up around, that organized crime world and all this stuff you watch and you listen to. But it wasn't for us just on TV. I mean, like we're seeing it in real life. And that's something that we looked up to, which is ridiculous. Be careful, who your circle is, who you're around. It's very important.
I ask everyone this question at the end of the podcast. I asked you the first time around, so the second time I'll ask you the same question.
Sure.
If there's some lesson or information that you could leave for the world, you're getting ready to leave this world and pass on. You got 30 seconds and you're broadcasting to the whole world. What's something that you would say? What's a message that you would say to the next generation? Information that you want to pass down to them, knowledge, wisdom, anything.
Man, I'd say life is a blink of an eye, and so be careful what you do at the time here. Follow the most reliable person that's ever lived, Jesus Christ, and what he taught and what he said. If you follow what he taught and said, you won't have regret at the end of life. You won't get to the end and wish you would have done things differently. Just follow his instruction, the things that he left to us to understand, and make this world a better place. Just a simple conversation, a kind word, makes an impact that we wouldn't even understand. The ripple effects of generosity, kindness, it goes so far that I don't think we completely understand the impact. And that's what I would tell them. I'd say, follow Jesus as much as you can, and understand that we're not perfect. We're all full of sin, and nothing we can do to change. There's nothing we can do to change that except our faith in Jesus Christ.
That's a good message. We'll close it right there.
With the song. Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands, watching the ships as they come sailing. Thanks for watching this episode of Gilded Minds Podcast. If you'd like to see more, click this link right here. Don't forget to click, like, and subscribe.